Hello everyone, it's Jennifer McGuire, and this video is for the Simon Says Stamp blog hop in celebration of their August card kit. It's a fabulous kit, and in it is a new stencil, and I thought I'd show you a creative way of using that stencil with the new distress markers from Tim Holtz in Ranger. And that's what I used to create this background here, and the greeting is also from the Simon Says Stamp card kit, and I'll show you how to create a vellum embossed window for that. So let's go ahead and do the background. This is the stencil that's in the Simon Says Stamp August card kit. It's a fabulous stencil. There are many ways to use stencil. This is a kind of a different way that I'm going to do today. These are the new distress markers. There were some original colors, and now they've come out with these new seasonal colors, and I think they are just great because they're nice and vibrant and bright. So I decided to take the blues and greens from this collection. I think I used maybe 5 different colors and use them with these stencils. So this is what a distress marker is like. There's a fine tip and also a brush tip, and we're going to use both today. These are great because when they react with water, they kind of act like watercolor, so it's really fun to do and easy to control. So what I'm going to do is just take the marker, the fine tip, and trace around the outside of the little stencil holes here. And I'm just going to do this randomly. I think I'm starting here with peacock feathers, which is by far my favorite of the colors. I think it's just gorgeous. And I'm going to randomly trace in some of these holes. Now you'll notice they're not perfect. That's okay, no problem at all. As we go back and add water to this, it'll end up blending and be just fine. Now I'm going in, this is Salty Ocean. This is one of my other favorite colors. I'm going to fill in a few random holes with that. This is Mowed Lawn. It's the perfect color of green, like a grass green. It's just great. And I'll fill in some more holes with that. And then the next one I'm using here is the Iced Spruce. So this is a great kind of grayish blue. It's really a pretty color. So I'm going to leave a few of the holes unfilled so that it just doesn't look absolutely perfect. There's some variety to it. Now I've removed the stencil, and I'm taking the brush tip and just tracing around inside the fine tip shape that we made with the brush tip. This is just to add some more color to it. You could skip this, which I'll show you later, but I want the color to be more intense. Now after I've filled in with the brush tip and put some more color there, I'm just using water brush with some water and filling it in and just pulling the color into the center of those holes. Now I'm working on watercolor paper so that I can use a lot of water, and these markers will act like watercolor. You could do this on regular cardstock, but you'll get much better results with watercolor paper. Now I'm going to go ahead and start filling in the others. This card took me about a half hour to do. These start to come together quickly as you get the hang of it. And I'm just filling in some more color and then going through and adding some water to each one. The more water you put in it, the more blending you'll get and the more kind of watercolory puddles you get, which I think is fabulous. But you can keep it nice and clean if you use less water. It's totally up to you on what look you're going for. Now you're probably wondering why I didn't trace in the stencil with the brush tip. There were a few reasons. One is the fine tip really got into the little crevices and turns of the stencil better. Also, I was afraid if I traced through a lot of those too firmly with the brush tip, I might damage the brush tip of my marker. I probably would have been okay, but I actually kind of like that defined edge that the fine line marker gives you. So now I wanted to show you, this was just like when I was practicing before, but you could just do the fine line on the outside, the fine tip line, and not add any other color, and look at, you get a soft watercolor blend. So if you want a softer look, you could do this if you wanted to. But I kind of like that bold color, so I did all of the background by tracing in with the dark color, then adding, or with the broad tip, and then adding some water on top of it. So now that we've got the background done, I wanted to show you how I created this window with the new Simon Says Stamp greeting. Now this is really fun to do, but involved cutting up my stamps, of course. This is the stamp set that comes in the kit, and there are lots of different greetings and messages that go together well. I think this is a great stamp set that I'll reach for often. And I decided to use the greeting that says, "You make my heart happy," but I want it to fit inside a little heart window here. I didn't want my heart to be any bigger because it would take away from all that stencil work we did. So I'm cutting up my greeting, and so I'm taking just the "You Make," which actually is separate on the stamp set, and I'm stamping it with Versamark ink on some vellum. I'm using the Basil, I think it's 40-pound vellum, and adding some Hero Arts white embossing powder, and then just using a heat gun. And I just keep my heat gun moving quite a bit, and that prevents the vellum from warping. So now that I've stamped "You Make," I'm going to take the My Heart Happy, I think it is, and cut that up and do my heart right underneath it. and emboss that separately, and then do happy and emboss that separately. The reason I'm stamping them each separately instead of putting them all on the mount together, I wanted the words to be as close as possible to each other so that they would fit inside that heart. If I mounted them all separately, there might be a little bit too much space and then it wouldn't fit. So here this actually works out perfect and fits inside the heart die cut that I want to use. So now I have this die. This one is from My Favorite Things. It's part of the heart stack. There's a bunch of different hearts in there, all of the same shape but just different sizes. I'm using a little bit of sticky note here, just like Post-it tape. You could use washi tape if you wanted to hold this right in place on a note card where I've trimmed that background that we created and added it. So I'm going to run this through my die cut machine, and there we have a perfect little window for our card. Now, the thing that I did here, if I were you, don't do what I did here, I would not have glued that panel onto the card. So if you're going to do this, just temporarily hold that panel to the card before you run the heart through the die cut machine. I had to pull it apart. So that's one of the advantages of using this Tombow Stamp Runner adhesive, is that I could peel it apart and I'll be able to put it back together without damaging my card. But I want to have the vellum sandwiched between the card and that stenciled background that we made. So that's why I pulled it apart. So now that I've got my vellum here in between the two layers, I'm going to add some adhesive to the stenciled part here. I'm using a lot of adhesive because I want to make sure that it sticks really good after I've messed with it so much. And add that to top, and there we go. We have that vellum window with the greeting kind of floating on it. Now there were a few finishing touches I wanted to do to this card. First of all, I felt like there needed to be a little defined edge to this, so as I seem to always be doing these days, I cut 2 thin strips of cardstock, just some scraps, and I'm going to glue these right along the edge of the stenciled background. And this makes it look like you did a matted piece, but it's much easier to put together, and it's a great way to use up some scraps. So I'm just going to glue them on both sides of the card. Now there were a few things that were bothering me about this card. I kind of felt like it was a little too matte. So I decided, if you look there at some of the little stenciled areas, you see some shine. I'm using my current addiction, the Wink of Stella glitter pen, just to add a little bit of shine to just some of the little stenciled areas in the background. Another thing that I wanted to do was put a defined edge around the heart window, just like I did along the edges of the stenciled area. And this is a great tip or technique for creating a little frame to a die cut window. What I did was trace with a pencil the outside of the same die that we used. Since the outside of the die is actually a little bit bigger than the area that it actually die cuts, it makes a good frame. Now watch as I cut with my scissors here. I'm cutting just a little bit outside of that pencil so that the heart is a little bit bigger. And this looks like, it would be hard to make perfect, but actually it's pretty easy to cut along this. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then when I take my heart here, and I'm going to put the die edge down, the cutting edge down, right into the center of it, use a little bit of sticky tape to hold it in position and run it through my die cut machine. And what will happen is I end up with that thin frame that I can add to my card. Now there were many other ways that I could have created this little heart frame, but since this is the last minute addition, this was the easiest way to create the perfect heart frame for the die cut window that we already did. So I'm using some adhesive here, and I'll just line this up right onto the window on my card, and you can see how easy it is. I do this trick a lot where I trace the outside of the die and then cut it out. It gives you a nice thin frame. I think that gives it a nice finishing edge, just like along the edge, the side panels that we did there. So that's a fun peek into some of the new pieces in the Simon Says Stamp August card kit, along with the new distress markers. If you have any questions, please visit my blog at jennifermcguireinc.com, and thanks for watching.